Hello and welcome to the Daily Brown Bag. Today we are talking net neutrality. I'm Chad Hill and I'm joined by Adam Stetzer.
Hey, good afternoon, Chad. Welcome to the Brown Bag. Chad, we've covered this issue a bit before, this issue of net neutrality, and it's heating up because the FCC is getting closer to making a big decision on how it's going to rule on this. And recently, President Obama actually weighed in on the issue in a pretty big way, and he said he was in favor of net neutrality and took a few positions that we want to cover here today. He said specifically that he believes internet providers should not be allowed to designate a fast versus a slow lane of the internet. He's viewing internet service as critical to the public and is putting it in the same category these days in this modern age as being as critical as electricity or a telephone. And he specifically wants to restrict rules that would, prevent ISPs, or he wants rules in place, strict rules that would prevent ISPs from blocking or slowing down access to specific sites. He furthermore wants wired and wireless services to be viewed, again, as this public utility. So coming out and saying these things, Chad, pretty much aligns the White House with a lot of the activists who've been out there and worried that big business was going to step in and start controlling the internet, and some other big companies who are aligned with the activists, such as Google and Microsoft, and they also want ISP to be reclassified as a public utility. This would be done, interestingly, under Title II of the Communications Act of 1934. So not really new legislation here, but an updated interpretation based on the modern usage of the internet. Now, of course, on the other side, there's a lot of debate on this. On the other side, you have big providers like Comcast, Time Warner, and Verizon. They say they want to support an open internet, free from any government interference. They fear that the classification will limit their ability to package and sell their services efficiently. It's sort of the free market argument we've heard, and of course, we hear that it will stifle innovation if they don't feel they could make profits without government interference. So certainly an argument on that side. So where do we think this is going, Chad?
Well, I think, Adam, as you were saying it, it just kind of reminded me of that segment that went totally viral that John Oliver did about net neutrality, and just if you haven't seen it, of course, check it out. It was really great on going back and forth and showing all these snippets of people talking about it and how most people just have a hard time getting their head around it. But it does matter, and here's a couple things. The president doesn't really get a vote, so it is interesting when you see the president coming out and you sort of think, well, doesn't the president get to pick the FCC? And it turns out that he does get to place people on the FCC. In fact, the chairman, Tom Wheeler, was an Obama appointee, but he's also a cable lobbyist. So really, I think what that it really means is that Wheeler does think that the internet should remain open, but it's stopped short of specifics. We know how that kind of political talk works sometimes, Adam, is that someone agrees with the populace, but under the covers things aren't quite what they seem. And he said that that Wheeler here is looking for a compromise. He's looking for clearly to support the needs of the cable and big providers of ISP services, but also to keep the internet open. And so this is where it's really interesting. It was interesting because the FCC opened this up for comments, got 3.7 million comments. Sunlight Foundation did analyze all of those comments and said that 2/3, and we've actually covered this in the Brown Bag, but 2/3 support strong rules to maintain net neutrality, and basically revealed that about 99% of the public supports net neutrality. So it's sort of confounding in some ways that the president can say go with net neutrality. The chairman of the FCC sort of says he hears everyone saying this, the president and the people, but yet this thing is not really closed, and you never know what's going to come out of this legislative, this regulatory process. I think that, again, why it matters to us is because this really will dictate how the future of the internet works for consumers and also for content providers. People who are looking to get a start and getting their content around the web, this will matter. And there's actually one final thing here, a very interesting article that was on VentureBeat, where one of the founders of Fiverr actually came out and wrote a really nice guest blog post. Some of the things that he talked about was remembering back. Most people don't sort of remember this, but remembering back to when IE had 90% of the browser share. They did successfully sort of shut down Netscape or drove in Netscape to a very low market share, and that their world and version of a view of the internet wasn't quite as open as I think it's become with all of the APIs and more open standards that work across lots and lots of platforms. So there are many examples, and that's just probably one of the more recent ones, where you want an open system, and people more and more trust the openness of the internet and the fact that we can rely on all these different data sources and moving information around very quickly and easily in big data, that stuff could be at risk here, Adam, if net neutrality goes down in a way that sort of gives people what they think they want but isn't truly net neutrality. So I'm still confused myself. We'll see where this goes.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there's big dollars at stake here, Chad, and we will definitely continue to cover this. An analogy with Netscape and Internet Explorer, very interesting one. So stay tuned to this one. We'd love to hear your comments. Please drop us a line. And while you're at it, subscribe so we can see you here tomorrow. Have a great afternoon.